Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my birth story. Excuse my hair, I'm a mom now, but my hair was never really done before, so before I start, I have a couple disclaimers. I'm not a doctor. Do not think that just because my labor and delivery went like this, yours will, because it most definitely won't. And don't let this scare you. Just because something scares me doesn't mean it'll scare you. And just because I think something's serious doesn't mean you'll think it's serious. I'm just here to tell you how everything went down. Because trust me, it went down. So grab a snack because mama's back and... wow, let's jump into the video. So I went into labor January 10th. I believe that I labored that whole week before. January 10th is a Friday, was a Friday, and that whole week before, starting on Monday, I was getting very frequent Braxton Hicks contractions. So Thursday morning, January 9th, I had a doctor's appointment, and it was taking me a little longer to get ready because I kept like stopping because I was getting these Braxton Hicks contractions. They weren't terrible to where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in labor, but they were enough to where I'm like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, let me just sit down, or oh, let me stop real quick, let this pass, whatever. So I call the doctor's office and I tell them that I'm going to be late because I was having these pains, and the doctor told me to just go into the emergency room and get checked out because there was no need pushing my appointment back if I'm having these pains, just to go get checked right away. So I go to the hospital that I was planning on having him, and they see me right away and they monitor me for about 2 hours. So when I first got there, I was 2.5 centimeters. And they monitored me for 2.5 hours. Yeah, about 2.5. And I had not progressed at all. I was still 2.5 hours later. So they decided to send me home. They did tell me that my contractions were consistent and I was probably in early labor because my contractions were 2 to 5 minutes apart. But I could still sit still through them. Like, yeah, they were painful and I felt them, but I could still sit still through them, just kind of like clench up a little bit, but it wasn't really that bad. And I remember telling the nurse, like, how am I gonna know when it's time to come in? Because she told me normally they tell women over the phone if their contractions are 2 to 5 minutes apart to just go ahead and go into the hospital. So she said if my water breaks, if my contractions get stronger, closer together, to go in. And I remember thinking, like, I really hope my water breaks, because how am I supposed to know if my contractions are getting stronger and closer together if they're already technically pre-labor? Oh honey, I had another thing coming. Also, before I left the hospital, I started to lose my mucus plug. If you don't know what a mucus plug is, Google it, because I really don't want to explain it because I don't know, people explain it in a different way. Google it. I started to lose my mucus plug. So once I get home from the hospital, my contractions slowed down to 30 minutes apart, and I figured, I was just like, I'm gonna be pregnant forever. Also, my due date was January 12th, so I was 39 weeks and 4 days on the 9th, 39 weeks and 5 days the day I had him on the 10th. So I was pretty much full term. So I get home, my contractions slow down, so I start bouncing on my ball, I eat a good meal, I take a nap, I sterilize all his bottles because I'm just like, I might as well, he should be coming soon. If they told me I'm in pre-labor, he should be coming soon. So I did all that. So around 10 o'clock that night, also Dustin had a migraine this whole day, Thursday on the 9th, and he slept all day. So around 12 midnight, I got this, like, I started to doze off, and I got this really hard contraction. Like, I was like, I couldn't sit still through it. I kind of like was arching my back like, oh my goodness. Okay, well, let me close my eyes and get some rest just in case, and tomorrow we'll go walk it out. Like, I was planning on going walk the next morning. So I doze off, and probably about 10 minutes later, another really hard one. I was just like, okay, like, I was starting to roll around because they were hurting. So I started to time them. About 3 of them came like 10-15 minutes apart, and they were super hard. And then literally after those, they were coming probably 3 minutes apart at this point. Like at a snap of a finger, they started coming so consistently and close together. So I got up, and just so happened when I got up, Dustin was getting up. His migraine was completely gone, just went away. I mean, they normally go away, but you know what I mean. So I'm in the bathroom, I'm having these contractions. I'm like having to pee after every single contraction, so I'm peeing like every 2 minutes. I wasn't able to sit still through the contractions, so TMI, I'm on the toilet, crunched over, having these contractions, peeing. I'm sure I lost the rest of my mucus plug at this time. So I was just like, oh, like, we need to go to the hospital. By this point, it's around 1:30 in the morning. So I start getting ready. I'm having to stop. I'm having to sway. I'm having to breathe because I'm dying. And I start to realize that I'm experiencing back labor because holy moly, I didn't even feel my contractions in the front of my stomach or anywhere else other than my back. And the only way I can describe the feeling of back labor, if you have not had back labor, is someone heating up a knife until it was bright red and slowly shoving it into your spine. So I don't know where I left off because my husband just got home, but yeah, a flaming hot burning knife slowly being shoved in your back. Not fun. And for the people that have had back labor, at this point, I'm trying to get dressed. I am struggling to get through these contractions because they are so painful. They're coming on so hard and so frequently. At this point, it was coming at like every 2 minutes. My body started to shake so bad. My body was shaking so hard and so bad. And I'm assuming it's just from the pain that I was feeling in such a short amount of time. So get everything ready, we pack up the car. Once I got there, they seen me immediately because I was obviously in pain, and the people in the emergency room was like, oh, you having a baby tonight, because I was just like, oh, in so much pain. So they were wheeling me everywhere because every time I got up and moved, another contraction would come on regardless if one had just left. It would start immediately. So they bring me in a little triage room just to check me, ask me my pain level, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't going in with a birth plan. I knew what I wanted. I didn't want an epidural. And I knew all the terms of what they were going to do. So if they were going to try to get me to do something, I knew if I wanted to deny it or not and all that good stuff. I know anything could happen during labor. So I wasn't really expecting it to go one way because literally anything can happen, and what you plan is not going to be how it goes. The nurse asked me if I wanted the epidural, and I just looked at Dustin and I'm like holding back tears, and I'm just like, yes. I really didn't want an epidural because I have back problems already, and I just didn't want to add to my back problems because some people do experience back problems when they get an epidural. My contractions were still 2 minutes apart. They were even stronger than before, and like I could not sit still to save my life. And they're like hooking me up, they're rushing because they could tell I was in pain, and they checked my cervix again, and I was 4 centimeters dilated at this point. So about 2:30, 3 a.m. at this point on January 10th, they considered me in active labor and put me in a room. This is when shit hit the fan. I don't like needles. I don't like getting shots. I don't like giving blood. I don't like it. I can't look at it. I can't look at your equipment. I have to look completely the opposite way and just literally take my mind out of the vicinity that I am in when needles come near me. I mean, but I have tattoos, so I don't know, I'm weird. One of the nurses is checking me in. She's getting all my information. She's asking me all these questions. I'm dying. Like, I'm trying to breathe through my contractions. They are so bad. I'm shaking so bad. and then they try to start an IV. When you're in labor or when you're having a baby, they don't put you a normal IV right here. They do it in your hands and your wrists, and those tend to hurt a little more. Well, the nurse first tries to put an IV right here in my wrist. She picks me, she missed the vein. So she starts digging for the vein with the needle in my arm. I'm already in so much pain. My body is shaking so bad, and she is digging in my arm with a needle. So I'm holding on to Dustin for dear life, and finally she takes the needle out. She blew the vein. So she goes on my other hand and she tries to put the IV in my hand right here. Misses the vein, starts digging for the vein again, and blows my vein in my hand. Finally, she goes in my wrist right here and picks me and starts digging for the vein right here, and finally gets it. So she didn't have to dig for long. I have to stretch out because my legs falling asleep. Didn't have to dig for long, thank God, but finally she got it, didn't blow my vein again, and yeah, so that was done. So I'm filling out all this paperwork, trying my best. Thank God they gave me the epidural right away because I was struggling. I remember just thinking through these contractions that towards the end of them, I was just like, I'm gonna pass out. Like I can't breathe anymore. Like I'm gonna pass out. So finally they finish all the paperwork. They ask me my height, weight, all that stuff for the epidural 3 times. You're gonna need this for what's coming up. They asked me this 3 times. Finally, they make my husband go sit out in the waiting room because he couldn't be in there while I got it. The doctor comes in. He asks me what my height and weight and everything is too. So I'm having these bad shakes still, and these contractions were about 1.5 minutes apart at this point because I feel like with all the needles that she was sticking in me, my body was just starting to really like freak out, and some contractions were constant. Like one would go down and another one would start, another one would go down and another one would start. But at this moment they were about 1.5 minutes apart, and still only 4 centimeters. So finally the doctor comes in, the anesthesiologist, and they start prepping me for the epidural. So I am crunched over the bed and holding on to this nurse because I'm petrified of needles, again, scared of the epidural. Finally, he numbs me and puts the tube in. If you don't know what epidural is, again, Google it, but it's a tube of medicine that is hanging out your back pretty much while you're in labor, whatever. Numbs you from the waist down. So he goes and puts the tube in my back, and I feel the tube snaking through the right side of my body. And I couldn't, it was such a weird pain to where all I could do was kind of scream a little bit. And they were like, what? Like, what do you feel? And I'm like, there's something in my right side. So I feel him pull the tube out and re-stick me, re-numb me, all that stuff. So they're like, okay, let us know if you feel anything this time. He does it again. I feel the same exact pain again in my right side. I feel this tube snaking through the right side of my body. It might not have been snaking through the right side of my body. I don't know exactly how epidural works, but what I felt was like a tube snaking through the right side of my body. Finally, on the 3rd try, I didn't feel anything. And actually, from him numbing my back so much, I stopped feeling my back labor, and I was actually able to just sit still through my contractions while he finished up. And it was like such a big relief that I could have literally, like, he could have went without the epidural at that point, but I mean, I was that far. So he cranks it up. I'm like freaking out because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to lay still for 15 minutes waiting for this epidural to kick in, but that was not the case. It kicked in right away. And then I started to not be able to feel my chest. And I'm like, so I start feeling around. I'm just like, I look at the nurse and I'm like, where am I supposed to be numb at? And she was like, oh, just the waist down. And I was like, I can't feel my chest. And she was just like, let me go get the doctor. So the doctor comes, they turn off the epidural, they start flipping me on each, or they sit me up, they flip me on each side. I didn't know until afterwards the baby's heart rate was kind of dropping, and they sat me up to let the medicine kind of flow. They turned off the epidural completely, and they watched me for a little bit, and then I started to get super nauseous, so they gave me a shot because my blood pressure had dropped really low. And they were just monitoring me for a little bit, monitoring the baby. Finally, they get everything under control. My contractions completely stopped. Completely stopped. They start me on Pitocin because my contractions completely stopped after I had the epidural. The doctor told me that I am on the shorter side, and their normal start level or whatever was too much. I mean, obviously, I told you I was 5'2", 4 times. The nurses and you knew I was short. So he leaves, and another doctor eventually about 2 hours later, well, about an hour and a half later, comes and turns my epidural back on. And what he started me at was a 14. I don't know what that means, but what he started me at was a number 14, and I was good, nice, and numb at a number 10. So you can understand kind of why my face was starting to go numb as well. So after all that, I am feeling great. I have no pain. I am chilling, calming down. Finally, we get a chance to call all of our family and telling them that we're in the hospital. At this point, it was about 6:30 in the morning, so all this was going on. It was about 3 hours of chaos. So about an hour later, around 7:30, the nurse comes in, she checks me. I'm 5.5 centimeters and my water breaks. So everything's going smoothly at this point. I text my family, 5.5, my water broke at 7:30. Around 9 o'clock, the nurses come in and tell me that my doctor isn't on call. I'm gonna have another doctor. I did like the doctor that delivered him, so it wasn't an issue. They're saying that they kept losing his heart rate. Not that it wasn't there, but he was wiggling and they couldn't keep a steady monitor on him, so they were going to put an internal monitor, and the doctor was going to do that when she came in and meet me. So around 9:15, 9:20, my family had to leave the room. The doctor comes in, she introduces herself, she tells me she's going to put an internal monitor, check how I'm doing, all that good stuff, and that was pretty much it. She goes to check me, and she's just like, wow, he's really low. And all of a sudden, she looks up at the nurses, and she's like, she's complete, and she's ready to push. And I remember laying there, and I just looked at Dustin like this. And he just kind of looked at me with his eyes big, and I was just like, call my mom, because my mom wanted to be in the room, and she wasn't there yet. He calls my mom, and he's like, hey, they said that she's ready to push, and they're prepping her to push. So they're like busting open cabinets, rolling beds in, getting all this stuff ready. Nurses are coming in and out. They're putting my feet in the stirrups, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, everything was happening so fast that, like, I just was so overwhelmed, and I was just like bawling my eyes out, and the nurse was like, oh, what's wrong? Like, are you nervous? You're excited? And I was just like, yeah. The nurse gets me to do a practice push while the doctor went and changed. So I'm doing a practice push, and she's like, great, we're gonna do one more and whatever. So we wait, and then we wait for another contraction to come on, and then she's like, great, we're gonna practice pushing again. So I start to push a second time. She's like, stop. And she's like, get the doctor. They're like, she's changing. And she's like, but we need the doctor. So I'm assuming that he was about to come. She's standing with the monitor, like the stomach monitor, and she's kind of like pushing it in my pelvis to just make sure it keeps his heart rate while he's in the birth canal. And apparently, again, they weren't really telling me much, but his heart rate was dropping again, and it was like in the 80s. The nurses are rushing in. The doctor comes. She tells the doc, that's how I found out. She tells the doctor, like, his heart rate keeps dropping, and the doctor was like, okay, get the vacuum. And I'm like, oh my God, they're about to suck my baby out with a vacuum. Oh my God. At this point, the doctor sits down to pull this baby out of me, and my mom comes running in the room, like, last minute. So finally, the doctor is getting me ready to push. The nurses are like, all right, let's start pushing. So I did one push, and they're like, good, 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 good. His head is coming. Pushed again. His head was out. I pushed one more time, and his whole body was out. So the total of 3 real pushes, 1.5 practice pushes, he was out. So thank God they didn't have to use the vacuum. I'm pretty sure if it would have took longer for him to come out, they would have sucked my baby out with a vacuum. So yeah, he comes out crying, pink, happy. He was 6 pounds 12 ounces. He comes out at 9:40. It's great. So everything with him wise, he was perfect. Everything went perfectly, and I'm so grateful. I will go through all the trouble that I went through, all the pain during labor, all the problems after, and complications. I would go through it all again as long as I have a healthy baby like I do now. After is when things start to get pretty scary for me. For one, I was still freaked out that they numbed me all the way up to pretty much my face, but I'm pretty sure since he had to go in 3 times with my epidural that it caused a lot of problems with the sac that covers my spine and my brain or whatever. I don't know exactly what it's called, but that night I started to get really bad migraine. So the next day an anesthesiologist comes in and kind of explains to me that when you go in with an epidural, sometimes the sac around your spine and your brain holds spinal fluid, and if you nick that during an epidural, it causes a spinal fluid leak and could cause your brain to sag, which causes these migraines. The only way to get rid of them is to let my body heal on its own for 10 to 12 days, or let him pretty much do the same procedure as an epidural, but perform a blood patch where they go in with the same tube as an epidural, take blood from me, and inject the blood into my spinal sac. I think it's called a dura or something. I don't know all the terms. Again, Google it if you don't know or don't believe me or whatever. Pretty much my spinal fluid was leaking. I was having these awful migraines. I couldn't even enjoy having my newborn because I was in so much pain. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna suck it up. Let's do the blood patch, whatever. Go in, do the blood patch. It sucked, but I did it. That day, my migraines had completely went away. I was feeling good. They kept me an extra day just to watch me because of my migraines and stuff. Everything was fine. Well, the day that I went home, my migraines started again, which normally they say that blood patches are successful in these things. Your migraines should completely go away. That's what the doctor told me. They didn't. I had a migraine for about a week straight. I had to stop breastfeeding because while I would breastfeed, my migraines would be so bad, like intensified, I guess from just the hormones pumping while I'm breastfeeding. And like I wasn't even able to fully take care of my newborn for the first week of his life because of this. And the only way I had relief was from laying flat, because when you lay flat, it levels out your fluid. So it was very hard and depressing, and hard mentally and physically just to not be able to take care of your baby and in so much pain. Hey guys, so actually it's like a whole completely different day, but I was looking over the footage and I realized that I left some stuff out about, like, I just kind of brushed over my migraines and how awful they were, but also during that week I had zero appetite. I wasn't eating, so I was weak, and on top of the migraines and all that stuff, it was really rough. So that's kind of another reason why I was very down in the dumps and had a lot of anxiety. I gained about 10 to 12 pounds during my entire pregnancy, like in total, and I lost 15 pounds in 4 days after I had him. I have lost about 20 pounds in total, like as of right now, since giving birth. And I just wanted to come on here and kind of say that because I was rushing because it was Valentine's Day. We were going to do stuff, me and my husband, and actually this is his room. I wanted to do a room tour, but I never fully finished it. That's his closet. Sorry about the mess at the top of his closet. I got to organize all that stuff, but okay, back to the video. But I have such an amazing husband that did everything and did not complain and took such good care of me and my baby for this hard week. I'm just really glad that I eventually healed, and I'm glad it didn't take, some people take 2 weeks, a month to heal, and I think that was the scariest thing going through that, is not knowing when I was going to heal and what damage it really did to my back and my brain and all that stuff, which again, what may seem serious to me may not seem serious to you, and what may be scary to me may not be scary to you. But I was very scared of brain damage, of the migraines never going away. So pretty much labor and delivery went pretty smoothly. It was just the aftermath and before I got relief was pretty scary and crazy, and everything happened so fast. But we have my sweet little boy here. I'm sorry if the light changed because the sun went down while I was filming this video. I'm gonna update you guys on the last few months of my pregnancy, why I stopped making videos, and hopefully get back on the train of making videos so you can meet Zeppelin and keep up with him and his little life, because he is such a blessing. Like, I look at him and just cry all the time because of how wonderful he is. This video is probably a million years long. Sorry about that. Hope you grabbed a snack, like I said in the beginning, because my life is going to revolve around mom jokes now. But thank you guys so much for watching and coming along this journey with me, and hopefully continuing along this journey with me and watching my son grow and maybe another baby soon. I'm not pregnant, but Dustin wants another one, like right now. He's crazy. Unless he gets pregnant, then not right now. Please subscribe if you have not already. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I would love to hear your birth stories in the comments below. If you've had a scary experience or if you had a great experience, I want to hear them all. If you went natural, epidural, C-section, as long as you brought a baby into this world, you are amazing, and it doesn't matter how you did. I look forward to hearing your stories in the comments below, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, I will leave all that in the description box, and I'll see you in the next video.